Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for the week of 7/7/25 to 7/11/2025. As always, we're going to go over the flow that was posted, kind of dig into the raw flow feed, kind of look at the tape, see how that looked, just kind of look at the overall movement of the contract. And I'm doing the full range of the contract. So we're going to look from the whale entry to the max return, kind of see the movement of that. And what I like to kind of tell everybody is when I'm looking for flow, I'm looking for about at least 15% return on the flow. I do kind of always recommend adjusting up stops to mitigate risk, all that stuff. And again, nothing in here is financial advice. Just kind of point out random flow that I posted that made moves. And if you're new to joining this, I do post everything in real time. I don't edit my posts or anything. Everything's posted real time. I recap all the flow that I post as well. So we will get started here. And there's one piece of flow here, this NVIDIA flow. This is a flow and charts play. It's still open, so I'm not going to recap that. Typically, we recap that at the beginning, but I want to leave this. This is kind of for members only right now. So let's get started here. So we have the 718 Bill 48 puts. And these came in here on the 7th. So we're going to go back to the 7th here and look. And I'm not going to do this for every single piece of flow, just kind of the ones that made a significant move. There's obviously some flow that's down, but we will go based off that. So here's our entry. You can see on 7/7, 2,000 contracts. No open interest, so this is what you consider unusual. And you can see when we look at the flow here, obviously it's a clean entry. There's no open interest, so it's a complete opening trade. At the time I'm looking, I can see that net put premium rising. Now, the net premiums are a good tool. I wouldn't use these by themselves. I kind of like to match up other data points like the raw flow feed and all that. So let's dig in here a little bit more. So here's our flow. Let's take a peek at how it looks. Let's come down here. And sometimes the older flow doesn't always populate the best. So, okay, we're going to have to go with that first one here. Let's move this down to 250. I like to see all the flow I can. So what I'm looking at is that IV, the spot price, and that bid-ask spread. So right now, you can see, and good little small example here that you can see that IV drop. So I like to kind of see that IV continuously at least stay the same or move up. So you can see that spot price coming in at that ask. That spot is just the fill price. So now where I see that IV drop, I kind of try to find that piece of flow that made the IV drop. So you can see that spot right here is 149. That's closer to the ask. So now this is where that bid-ask spread is important, because if this was coming in at, let's just say 140, now that's closer to the bid. You're coming in at 149, you're very close to the ask. I would still consider this a buy here. So looking at that flow feed looks good. And you're looking at that time also here too. So making sure that time's all about the same and kind of looking at the context clues around that. So let's pop this out to Friday now so we can see that full move here. So here's our whale here. These actually kind of moved up same day, it looks like, 7/7. So hitting 194 on the day. So that yellow line is just the contract price. Kind of dropped for a little bit here, and then our whale's still in. Looks like these closed at about 250 yesterday. So these closed up 66.67% here on those. So good find there. And something that's shorter term like this, that's, well, these are $3 in the money here right now. So $3 in the money, that whale's pretty far. Can always exercise these too. So something to be cautious of, especially with them being shorter term there too. So 7% in the money, and they're 100% multi-leg now too. So probably wouldn't obviously chase those now. So up next, we have the 7/18/38 RKLB calls here. So again, these coming in here on the 7th. So we're going to start at the 7th here. So this was our whale entry here. So starting down here, you can see we had a lot of volume on the day. 13,875 contracts traded. You have an open interest of 2,145. Here's our flow. So 5,000. We're just gonna say 5,000 to make it an easy number. So pay attention to that because we only had a small amount carryover. So you can see all these other little candles kind of throughout the day. So I kind of want to start with this. A lot of these candles here, just seeing about 200, 300 contracts traded, about 1,000 there. So with only about 6,000 carrying over, so about half of that volume carrying over. So it's telling me that whale probably took some off intraday. And if we pop this to Tuesday, actually we'll pop this to the 9th because that's our biggest open interest day. So you can see here on the 8th, we had 2,200 contracts traded, majority of that falling off. So my guess is they probably took the rest of their profits somewhere in here. Hard to tell for sure if that whale's still here. Obviously, we had some volume yesterday. Probably wouldn't chase these anymore anyways. I mean, they're 3% in the money. So let's go back here now to the 7th. So let's start from the beginning. I just kind of wanted to show everybody that. So yeah, something like that, that's kind of where I'm considering that whale taking slower profits. So they're sizing out correctly. So here's our first flow feed. And again, kind of matching this with the net call premiums at the time. A lot of call volume, a lot of call premium. Let me look at that raw flow feed here, pop the results down so I can see everything. So you can see here, so 11, we just had a small little whale there. That's probably a retail trader, so not a big deal. Big spike in that spot here. Obviously, again, looking at the bid ask here, coming in at 210. So the IV drops a little bit here, but this isn't part of that trade. So I'm not ruling this trade out just because of that. And you can see that spot price increase anyway. So that spot price and that ask price will outweigh that IV there for me. So let's just follow this up here. So you can see that IV staying the same, spot staying at the ask. This is a repeated hits flow alert. Just kind of following this up. I keep following here. So now this is where kind of looking at the flow around it. This is why I say you got to look at the flow around it too. So this flow right here is what kind of drew my attention to it more. So you, if you're just looking at the repeated hits, like, okay, repeated hits, we're done. Now you can see coming in here, this is where a lot of your premium and size is coming in here too. Your spot price increases, big premium, and your IV increases. This would be textbook flow here for me. So that is what kind of sticks out there to me. And when you look at that rule here, so this is just your flow alert rule. So repeated hits, and you can always just click on these two and it'll kind of tell you if you actually come into the flow alerts here. I'll just pop it into a new tab quick. If anybody has questions on alerts or anything, you can come in here. They kind of updated. I think it's nope, not up there now. I don't really hang out in the flow alerts too much, but you can select your rules here. So pretty much I would have to find it. I'm kind of doing this mid-video, so a little not off the top of my head know where it is. It's been updated a little bit, but if you click on like the repeated hits ascending fill, that just means your spot price is increasing as it's coming up. Descending fill would be the opposite. Spot price is going down as the flow comes in. Floor trade, large cap, obviously a floor trader on a large cap. Low historic volume floor trade. A lot of it's self-explanatory, so kind of just looking at those there. So there is a spot here for that. Oh, rules in front of my face. Okay, so yep, you come into here and it'll kind of just give you a little breakdown on everything of all the flow rules and kind of how they figure it out and all that. So that's just kind of there for those that might want to know what these flow alert rules mean. So now let's get back to RKLB and we're going to look at that full week move here. So let's pop this out. So again, you can see we're kind of a lot of that volume here on the 9th and a lot of that carrying or dropping off here into the 11th. So for sure, I'm going to probably say I'll make an educated guess that this whale's out, but very good move on these. Running from that 212. Looks like we hit a high of 322 here on the 8th. So plenty of time. And I mean, we hit 3 even yesterday. So you're chopping. These were in the green for a good amount of time. And I'm going to say it looks like that whale got out about 240-ish or so. So slightly up, maybe kind of got out here at about 276 or so. Can't 100% tell. Nobody will be able to tell that unless you're that specific whale. But our max return here, 215 to 322. That is 49.77% there. So good move on that one. And a couple of these, like TLT here, small little move here. So 4,000 contracts, obviously, again, another clean opener. And I'm not going to dive super deep into all these, just kind of the ones that made bigger moves so people can kind of see. But good flow there. 103 came up and hit 114 here, kind of chopped around that high there, 117, 114. So about 13% on those. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I like to at least see 15%. But if I'm up 13, 14%, I'm not going to let it go to zero. I'll have a stop on. I will make sure at least I'm going to break even, maybe even adjust it up to 5%. 15% consistently is very good for a trader. You see a lot of people 300, 400%. That's great, but you're going to be more consistent over time if you're taking nice, solid, strong gains. 15, 30, 40% trades. I mean, those are very strong returns. So that's kind of the social media thing of this, where you see people just kind of posting 500,000% gains, and it's like, it's great, but it's very rare. People need to have the realistic expectations with this. So like this guy looks like they're still in. Obviously 41 days, a little longer term there. So from that 103 to 117, that's a 13.59% gain. Some of these, let's see, so BBY, this one is one of ours that are down right now. So a little time on those still, and just kind of looking at that raw flow feed here again. So this isn't 100% going to be a science where it's going to work every single time. Otherwise, we'd be all rich and millionaires and all that fun stuff. But I mean, because you look at this flow tape, just exactly the same. Opening trade here, obviously. IV spikes. You have your spot price increase, little wider bid ask spread there. And I mean, your IV stays up the whole way. It reads as a buy, so it looks good from a buy standpoint. Obviously, you have some time here, only 2% out of the money. This is actually, these would be in the money now. 70 puts. For some reason I thought it said 72 put. I was like, that's in the money, but no. So I mean, you're very close to seeing, and when you have time on these contracts, they're more forgiving. So like theta's not as aggressive. That's a whole another subject. But so these are trading at about 96 right now. So that whale would be down 51%. So again, do what you want with this information. None of this is financial advice. I'm not telling you to go find discounted whales or anything. I'm just kind of showing you the movement of the contracts. But this whale's still in, obviously, with a little time. So up next, we have the SPY put. This one's an interesting one. So from the 7th again. So a lot of volume carrying over. And to me, because we had more volume on the 9th here as well, too. A lot of it, these may be ads. I don't know if it's the same person. Nobody knows unless you're that actual person. But from the original entry, 160, they could have been average downs. Don't know for sure. But if they average down, it'd probably be about the mid, I'd say 70s or so with how much volume there is, and that would drop that down. So when I put that in, I put it in as about an average down. So that whale would be down about 56% or so on those. And again, obviously a little time on those. So up next, we have the 718 AA31 5 calls, Alcoa calls. So again, here's our flow from the 7th. And something I like to always do is kind of look at that net premium too, just kind of see how it's looking. Like, you don't see a lot of call or put premium typically on here, bid side stuff there, but pop this out 14 to kind of get a better view. I mean, you have a good spike there in that net call premium. Kind of like to see how this reacts too. This is something I like to do after hours as well. See another big spike in that net call premium there. So good sign there that usually when there's a spike in net call premium, that's good. So coming back to that original flow. So now this one, again, another example of reading the flow around this. So you can see right when the repeated hits start coming in here, IV spikes. And this is another good example of not all bid ask. So this is one thing I see a lot too. People just post ask side flow and say it's a buy. People will post bid side flow and say it's a sell. That is not true. That is 100% not true. You have to come in here, look at the raw flow feed like I'm doing here, and this will be a good example of that. So again, coming in here, spiking that IV. So now right away, if you're just looking and thinking bid, you're thinking sell, 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 it's a sell. Nope. So again, spiking that IV. You're coming in at the bid, but keep in mind, this is why you look at the flow around this as well. Here's a big chunk of ask side flow coming in here, and this is a majority of your premium and volume here. You have another spike in that IV. This reads as a buy. So you can technically be buying at the bid. That's just what your fill is. You can sell at the ask, you can sell at the bid, you can buy at the ask, you can buy at the bid. That's why you need to kind of pay attention to the raw flow feed. So coming back here, our move here, 73, these hit a high of, well, these actually ran kind of into the next day, chopped that same day, ran the next day, and then ran into the 10th. Looks like we hit 158 for a high on the 10th. That is 116.44% on those. So good move on those. All right. So the NVIDIA, we're going to pass on that one. That's a flow and charts play that's still open for our group. So out of respect for them, I don't want to give anything out. So PDD, again, another one down with some time. Just kind of looking at that flow feed here. So again, reads as a buy. Like I said, it's not always 100% of signs. Flow coming in at the ask. Spot price or spot filling at the ask. A lot of size, a lot of premium, repeated hits. You see that IV increase. So it reads as a buy. Obviously, you have some time on these as well. They kind of pop back a little bit on Friday, but then sold off a little bit there. So they are running at about, so let's see, fill was 510. They are running at 354 there. So this whale is down just roughly 30% or so on those. Again, and something I like to tell people is look at the days to expiration. The shorter the days, the quicker the expected move would be on something like that. So this whale's still in here. And let's look up, okay, so the Datadog puts, these were probably the best movers of the week. So coming back here, and these came in on the 8th. So let me pop this here. I want to show a clear view of the 8th. A lot of volume here, clean opening trade. Most of that kind of carried over. Only had about 846 contracts, so kind of sometimes makes it a little tougher when the size is a little smaller here. Once you kind of get used to reading flow, it will get easier to do that. But let's look at that raw flow feed. And again, A lot of the flow that I'm pointing out, you're going to notice it should all, I mean, it's all very consecutively. It's matching that IV's increasing, spot price is increasing. This is kind of what you have to do when you're looking through flow. I'd say about 85% of the flow is not good. You're just trying to find unusual flow that comes in. You see a lot of people just post every piece of flow that comes in. I don't do that. I actually take my time and look through the flow. So let's take a peek here. So again, another perfect example. Wider bid ask spread, coming that spot filling at the ask, spike in that IV here, just kind of following it up. Flow looks good. And when we pop this out to Friday, these actually expired 4% in the money. And these hit a high of, I think it was 575 here on the 10th. So these ran for 375.21% there. Good move on those. Then Apple here. Oh, first Apple here. So we had Apple puts again. Here's our entry, 2,600 contracts, 655 a fill. These kind of chop same day, small little move up. They actually hit their high on the 9th here at 805. So it's a 22.53%. And this is a good one where you can kind of adjust those stops up, where I always tell people adjust up, because you can see we slowly started coming back down. Should have stops on, especially if you're up 20% plus. So good spot there. Kind of looks like our whales mostly still in here. Have to kind of check some of that open interest on Monday, but it's like most of that's still there. I mean, you're sitting at 85% multi-leg too, so probably wouldn't try to re-enter anything like that. And it does overlap earnings. So a good move on those, the 657 to 805. So up next we had the 81 KHC 27 calls. Really interesting one here because we had an initial entry at 62, an ad at 48, and another ad at 64. So how do we know they're ads? Looking at that volume and open interest, very, very key. So again, the 8th, see most of that carry over. We had another 2,400 contracts traded that day, majority of that carrying over. Again, more contracts traded that day and a majority carrying over. Here's your big spike today. They hit a high of 120. There was some news around the company. 93.55% on those. Probably have to see. I'm guessing they probably took some off the table here at 77. Won't be able to verify that until Monday. But good move on those. A news move on that stock. So the 718 Core 94 calls are up next. Again, another one coming in here on the 8th. Smaller size, so again, as you kind of get used to this and kind of tracking the whales and all that, you can kind of hit the smaller ones. If you're beginning out or beginning to kind of read flow, I kind of like to tell people stick to the higher volume contracts, and you can kind of easily see exits a little bit more if they exit. But good move here. 155. These actually hit 242 on the 10th here, so I'm just trying to see where that is. Yeah, 242 and kind of chopping green on Monday, so or Friday yesterday. So 241, 242 was the high, so 56% on those. Good move on them. Uber 8-1, and again, that's one thing I always tell people too. Flow is time sensitive. If you miss a piece of flow, don't chase it. If the whale's already up 10-15%, I don't recommend chasing something like that. Again, do what you want, but that's flow is very, very time sensitive. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. I'd rather wait for a pullback on the flow and then I can get a discounted entry versus chase something that's already making a big move up. So again, our flow here. So the 9th, I'm going to adjust this. Here's our flow. Again, see most of that carrying over here. Just that volume to open interest is big there. You know it's an opening trade. We look at that raw flow feed here. Again, spike in that IV. So now a descending fill too would be technically considered a sell. So that's what would read it as a bid side flow. So this is why you always look at the raw flow again. Where's that bid side? Okay, so again, you're coming in at the bid. Kind of a little heavier size there, but again, kind of watching past it. IV drops a little bit again here. It's only one contract, so that's where you're getting that descending fill from. And then you see that IV pop back up, and then you see we have a little more spike in that IV here. Don't know for sure, that timing's not 100% there, but we actually got in these at that actually no, that first one, but it looks like that whale came in here at 258 too. So looks like they came in here and kind of made it multi-leggy. So that's, sometimes you'll have flow come in after it, but nonetheless, these are in the money. These hit a high of 340 here on the 10th. So that's 15.65%. So a good move on those. Finishing green here on Friday as well, closing at 318. So you would be green on these still. So good move on those. So MO, these ones, I got to bump this down 3 days. Again, a little more time on those. Contract 78, trading at about 60 right now. So whales down about 28% on those. Volume's all still there. Just kind of looking at that raw flow feed again too. So again, just look at that IV increase even at the bid. So again, it would read as a, let me look at the time here. Okay, so IV. So, and your spot's increasing. So when I see that spot increasing because that IV is dropping there, to me, that fill price kind of tells a little bit more than the actual IV. And I mean, again, this is why you look at the flow around it too, because look what comes in right after. There's your size above the ask, and that IV really spikes. So that's kind of why you look at that raw flow. But I mean, at first glance, you're probably thinking, oh, these could be sells with the ask with that IV drop, but now that spot's increasing. So like if we didn't have this big chunk of flow after that, probably something I would have avoided. But again, you can see a little more size and volume, or size and premium there. So a little spike in that IV, and then there you go. Reads as a buy, but some more time on those. Not super far out of the money. So, all right, we have the Apple calls, 725. So these made a move into the next day. These actually ran 20% same day. I posted these on X as well. 155 was the entry. They popped to about 183 there. Hit their high on 710. You can see we hit 252 there. So that's 60.51%. Looks like our whale probably took some contracts off or passed them off, 500 contracts there on the 10th. So you see only about 400 carry over into Friday. So that whale probably passed them off, closed most of their contracts because our original 900 contracts. So that's kind of why you got to pay attention to that volume and open interest. Grab calls, these made a move throughout the day and into Friday. 25, these hit a high of 35 here on Friday. So a nice 40% move on those. MU. And pop this back to 2 days now. We got in here at 273, 274. Kind of chopped that same day. Small little drop. Looks like that whale did not carry these over, though. Only had about 2,000 contracts get carried over. And then that whale probably missed out on some good profits because they hit 350 there. So 27.74% on those. American Airlines, these made a good intraday move. So again, this is why you always pay attention to theta, all that, how long-term the contracts are. We got in here, our entry was 21, actually popped back up here and hit 26 for a high. Actually on the 10th, 28 was the high on the day. That's 33%. So you might be thinking that's only $7 a contract. That's a big return. You're always looking at the percent return, not the dollar amount return. Just think if somebody's trading on a $100,000 contract, 33% to them is pretty a good return. Now 33% on $100 or $100 contract or account would be $30, and you're thinking, "Wow, that person made 33,000. I made $30." That's like kind of where I'm always saying look at percent, not dollar, because somebody's dollar figure is different than your dollar figure. So good move on those. Those were a profitable trade. So 21 to 28 there. And now BG again coming in here. So this one was kind of split bid ask. I kind of want to go back and look at this. So 3104, just kind of looking at that IV. So 3082 here. A little tougher one there. I mean, you're coming 4 minutes later, so hard to fully know. But these contracts did close green yesterday. Closed at 410, so that whale's up 2.5%. Obviously, with some time on those. So we're on to Friday, CVX. Again, here was our entry. 120, because I saw more flow come in here. So this was the original candle, and this is why I didn't like the original candle. You can see that IV decreasing here on that original candle. So I was thinking, okay, I don't like that. Could be sells at the ask. That spot price isn't really changing. So I got that second candle for a confirmation here. Now, when we look at the second candle, big spike in the IV all the way up. Fill coming in at the ask. Looked good. Made our run here, 120 to 156. So about 30% intraday move there. So like this is something I'd probably call like double flow, where you're kind of getting another piece of flow to maybe help you confirm the first piece of flow, something like that. So, and again, just kind of looking here, 11 o'clock on Central Time, that net call premium and call volumes picking up as well there. United Healthcare, these made a very nice intraday move here, 253, popped to 297, kind of dropped a little bit there. Came up and hit 335 for a high there, so 34% intraday move on those. ACN, these not seeing a lot of action so far. 155 looks like we closed at 170, so whales up about 9.68%. And Nike, so a good one there, 71, kind of popped up to 79 there. So quick little 10% and then dropped down to 72. So whales down about 2.7% or so on those, but that is the flow recap for the week. Again, anybody in Discord can verify this. Everything's posted real time. I recap everything in our ask side, bid side, ETF, and flow and charts. Our other flow here is kind of obviously earnings flows, lotto flow, spotlight flow is kind of a little different, but I will recap that. I don't edit my posts. Everything's posted real time. If you're interested in joining Stock Hub, it's $19 a month. You get a lot of good data. You can see I have earnings reports, economic reports, everything you need to know. I do breakdowns on majority of all the data as well. And if you'd like to try Unusual Whales, I do have a discount code I will drop in the subscription as well, or description. All right, everybody, have a great weekend.